The diner was quiet that morning, the hum of the old coffee machine mixing with the soft chatter of early customers. Clara, the new waitress, moved carefully between tables, her tray balancing steaming mugs and plates of eggs. She was young, ambitious, and exhausted from working double shifts to pay her bills, her hair tied back in a messy bun. She barely had time to breathe as she set a cup of coffee in front of a customer. A man in a tailored suit entered, drawing every eye in the small diner. He was tall, impeccably dressed, and had the kind of presence that made people shift in their seats. Clara noticed the expensive shoes peeking out from under his pants, polished to a mirror shine. He approached the counter, scanning the menu, but ignoring the polite greetings from the staff. "Good morning, sir," Clara said, stepping forward with a smile, trying to mask her nervousness. He barely looked at her. "Waitress," he said, his voice cold but smooth, like ice sliding over glass. Double quotes, "Yes, sir?" She asked, heart beating faster, unsure if she had done something wrong. "Clean my shoes," he commanded, motioning toward his feet with an imperious wave of his hand. Clara froze. The diner went silent for a moment as some customers looked up, curious and shocked. She had seen people act rude, even arrogant, but she had never been ordered to do something like this. Her first instinct was to refuse, but the man's stare held a subtle warning. He expected obedience. She swallowed hard, glancing around. The other staff avoided eye contact, pretending not to notice just then. A small voice called out from a corner table, "Mom, where's the sugar?" Clara blinked, realizing she could either embarrass herself or find a way to turn the situation around. She bent down slowly, pretending to pick up a rag, and muttered under her breath, "Sir, if you insist." The billionaire raised an eyebrow, clearly amused that she spoke while obeying. Clara got down on her knees in front of the shoes, polishing them with meticulous care. But instead of fear, she focused on precision, moving every brushstroke with calm determination. The diner was silent, each clink of her polishing brush echoing like a drumbeat in the quiet room. She could feel the billionaire's eyes on her, weighing her, calculating what she might do next. From the corner, a waitress whispered to a regular customer, "Why is she doing that?" Clara ignored them, aware that her response now could define the entire morning. She added a twist. Her polishing wasn't just cleaning the shoes. She made sure to highlight the small scuffs. Each stroke drew attention to the imperfection, not as rebellion, but as a subtle statement. The billionaire leaned back, curious, his posture relaxed now, waiting for her to finish. Clara, sensing the moment, paused and looked up directly at him, eyes steady. "You know, sir," she said calmly, "shoes shine brighter when you respect the person polishing them." Her voice was firm, polite, but carried a weight that made the entire diner take notice. He blinked, caught off guard, not expecting her to speak back while on her knees. The other customers whispered among themselves, some smiling at her courage. The man's expression shifted surprise, amusement, and a faint trace of respect flickered in his eyes. Clara continued, "A little care goes a long way, and every job deserves dignity." The billionaire straightened in his chair, realizing this wasn't a submissive employee, but someone sharp and confident. He looked down at the polished shoes, now gleaming like mirrors, reflecting the diner's fluorescent lights. Clara rose slowly, wiping her hands on a napkin, her posture proud, her voice steady. "Done, sir? Anything else?" she asked, holding his gaze without flinching. For the first time, he smiled, not a condescending smirk, but a genuine acknowledgement of skill. "Interesting," he said softly, tilting his head. "Most people would just obey without a word." Clara shrugged lightly, returning to the counter with her tray, keeping her composure intact. The diner seemed to breathe again, the tension melting into quiet admiration for her courage. A regular at the counter leaned over and whispered, "Where did she learn to do that?" Clara smiled politely, but didn't answer, letting the moment speak for itself. The billionaire, still seated, studied her like a puzzle he wanted to solve. She had turned an embarrassing demand into a display of respect and wit, leaving him intrigued. He finally stood, adjusting his suit, glancing down at his shining shoes one last time. "You've got guts," he said, voice low, almost a whisper meant only for her. Clara nodded, keeping her expression neutral, though a spark of pride glimmered in her eyes. The diner erupted quietly in murmurs of approval. Some customers even clapped softly. As he turned to leave, he dropped a card on the counter, slipping it into her hand discreetly. Clara looked down, reading the embossed letters. A private invitation to a business event. Her heart skipped a beat. This was no ordinary man, and this was no ordinary encounter. He smiled faintly, leaving the diner, and for the first time, Clara realized she had changed something. From her spot behind the counter, she watched him go, shoes gleaming, suit impeccable, aura commanding. The day continued, but the atmosphere was different now, charged with a sense of respect and possibility. Clara knew she had made an impression that neither she nor the billionaire would forget, and deep down, she couldn't help but wonder what the invitation might lead to. The diner's hum returned, but Clara carried a quiet satisfaction with her movements. She refilled coffee cups, took orders, but her mind replayed every moment of the encounter. It wasn't about the shoes or the humiliation. It was about owning her dignity and standing her ground. And in that moment, she understood that courage often comes in the smallest acts. The next morning, the diner was alive with chatter, but Clara felt a strange anticipation. She polished tables and served coffee with her usual precision. Though her mind wandered, the card from the billionaire lay tucked safely in her apron pocket, a secret promise waiting. She wondered if she should attend, or if this was just another trick of fate she couldn't predict. By mid-afternoon, the diner door opened with a familiar chime, drawing her attention instantly. The billionaire stepped in, his presence commanding, yet his expression softer than the day before. He removed his coat, revealing a tailored suit that seemed even more impressive under the lights. Clara's heart raced, though she maintained her composed stance behind the counter. "You came," he said, voice low, almost a private acknowledgement between them. "Yes," Clara replied, keeping her tone steady, though excitement tingled in her chest. "I wasn't sure you would," he added, eyes scanning the small diner like it held secrets. She nodded, brushing off a non-existent speck from her apron, hiding the nervous tremor. He approached the counter and leaned slightly, speaking in a voice meant only for her. "I've never seen anyone handle a situation like that," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Clara tilted her head, curious, trying to read the emotions behind his words. Most people would have cowered. You turned it into strength." Her cheeks flushed slightly, but she smiled politely, keeping her composure intact. "Thank you, sir." "I just didn't want to feel small," she said, voice firm yet gentle. He studied her, admiration and intrigue mingling in his sharp gaze. "You have presence," he whispered. A rare quality in someone so young. Customers glanced at them, sensing tension, but none could hear the low conversation. Clara carefully returned a tray to a table, giving him her attention while keeping her posture calm. "I wanted you to have this," he said, handing her a small envelope with elegant handwriting. She took it cautiously, fingers brushing against his, a spark of connection passing unnoticed. Inside was a ticket and an invitation to a high-profile charity gala that night. Clara's eyes widened slightly, realizing the significance. It was a world far beyond her own. I'm not sure I belong in that world," she said softly, uncertainty lacing her voice. He shook his head gently. "You belong wherever you decide to stand, and tonight I want you there." The diner felt suddenly small, like the walls themselves leaned in to hear their exchange. Clara tucked the invitation carefully into her apron, her pulse quickening with anticipation. He stepped back, letting her space return. but his eyes lingered with a quiet intensity. "Don't make me regret this," he added, a playful edge under the commanding tone. That evening, Clara dressed carefully, nerves mingling with excitement as she prepared. The invitation was her first exposure to elegance and power, a world she'd only seen in magazines. When she arrived, the gala shimmered with chandeliers, laughter, and voices of influence. The billionaire greeted her at the entrance, smiling with warmth that contrasted the earlier cold. He guided her inside, introducing her discreetly to other guests with a subtle authority. Clara moved gracefully, aware of every glance, yet keeping her confidence steady. Throughout the night, he stayed near, occasionally whispering observations about the crowd. She found herself relaxed, discovering a side of him that few ever saw. A quiet protector. A situation arose when a guest made a rude comment about her attire and background. Clara froze momentarily, but the billionaire's hand gently rested on her back. "Ignore them," he whispered. "They don't see what really matters." Her confidence returned immediately, and she held her head high, speaking with poise. As the night progressed, Clara realized her life had changed in ways she hadn't imagined. The billionaire, once a figure of cold authority, now seemed invested in her growth and respect. They laughed together over trivial jokes, sharing small moments that built a unique connection. For Clara, it was more than just the gale. It was a glimpse of belonging and recognition. Later, near the grand staircase, he paused, turning to her with a rare, serious expression. "I want you to understand," he said quietly, "that tonight wasn't about charity or status." She looked up, curiosity piqued, waiting for the weight of his words. "It was about courage. And you showed me what true courage looks like." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mix of pride and something deeper. He extended his hand, a gesture of both respect and partnership, subtle but meaningful. "I want to see more of that strength in the world," he added, voice soft but commanding. She shook his hand firmly, aware that their paths had intertwined in an unexpected way. The night ended with applause for a speech she never gave, and for acts she never expected. Clara returned to her small apartment, the invitation tucked safely, heart still racing. She replayed the evening in her mind, the subtle glances, his words, the sense of recognition. It was more than a night of glamour. It was a turning point, a moment she would never forget. The billionaire, watching from afar as she departed, felt an unfamiliar stir of admiration. He realized that wealth and power could never match the courage and dignity she displayed. And in that moment, both understood that their encounter in the diner was only the beginning. For Clara, the shoes she polished and the respect she earned were the start of a new chapter. The next morning, the diner resumed its hum, but Clara carried a quiet confidence. She moved among the tables, serving coffee, yet the world felt subtly different now. The memory of the billionaire's praise lingered, a reminder that standing her ground mattered. Every glance at her polished apron reflected not just service, but courage, poise, and self-respect. By noon, she received a discreet message from him, thanking her again and hinting at another meeting. Clara smiled to herself, understanding that respect and acknowledgement often came unexpectedly. She realized that the smallest acts, like polishing shoes, could reveal character and create opportunity. And she knew, without doubt, that her life had shifted in ways she would embrace fully. For the billionaire, it was not just a lesson in humility, but an encounter that reshaped his perspective. He had met someone who refused to bow to arrogance, yet handled situations with grace. Clara had not only cleaned his shoes, she had polished the world around her with courage. And in doing so, she left an indelible mark, one that neither time nor circumstance could erase. As the sun set outside the diner, Clara leaned against the counter, reflecting on the journey. From the humblest act to the grandest recognition, she understood the power of dignity. The billionaire's shadow loomed in her mind, not as fear, but as a promise of respect earned. And deep inside, She knew this was only the beginning of a story that had just begun.